Good morning. My name is Pastor Rodney Hogue, and I'm the pastor of Community of Grace Church in Hayward. My connections with Bob and his family have been a little bit through others. Some of our good friends are their next door neighbors, so we know the real scoop. Also because of Lieutenant Mark Landis and others, we've stayed connected. And Bob, on many occasions, has called us and called our church and asked us to pray for certain situations. So we've stayed connected. Over this past week, I've been watching many of you. I've been observing you a whole lot. I've learned that you can learn a lot about a person by just listening to others, watching and observing them, especially during this time. It's not that you just become nice, whenever somebody is going through troubles. But when I went to the hospital on Monday afternoon, and as being a pastor, I've been to many different deathbed situations. But whenever when I walked in just got off the elevator and I saw all of these people, and they weren't family members, it really said a lot. Even in the last few moments of his life, it's amazing. So I've developed, listening to many of you and observing and watching. I came up with some lessons from Bob. And lesson number one is this: titles are temporary, but legacies live on. I've noticed something about Bob, and I heard it shared just a little bit ago, that Bob did have his share of titles and promotions and things that he did in this life. But for him, life wasn't about titles, it was about people. And he was a great lover of people and invested into people. One of the great characters of the Old Testament was King David, and he was well known. He was one of the most remembered. But one thing about David is that he was a man who knew how to invest into the lives of other people. He had throughout his whole life this group that they were called the mighty men, David's mighty men, about 30 men who simply would just do anything for David. They loved David because David loved them, and David invested his life into them. Now, not everybody learned that lesson in David's lineage. There was his son named Absalom, and Absalom didn't have any heirs. And the Bible says this: it says that because Absalom did not have any heirs, that he built for himself a monument, something that others could see to remember him by. So for some people, they have legacies. For other people, they have monuments. So the first question we have to ask with this first lesson is that, how do I want to be remembered? For some people, it's about building monuments. It's about accumulating things and properties and assets and businesses. Some people build monuments of titles and accomplishments and promotions and attaining positions. But all those things are short-lived. After a time, nobody remembers the monuments that a person will build to themselves. But people last forever. Not only in this life, but also in the life to come. And whenever you invest into people, you invest into something that is really someone that lives forever. And Bob Cranford was the one who did such that. And I could see it in your faces, as I said on Monday afternoon. And I remember just being in those last few moments of his life, standing around, watching and observing many of these very grown men, eyes welling up, turning red, some of them coming over there and holding his hand. And just hearing the words for the next few days, hearing the way that Bob was a man who invested his life into others. His legacy will not be found on paper. It won't be found on the things that are hanging on his wall. Eventually, those things, one day, you're going to stick them in a box and put them in the attic. But lives live on. Now, I don't know all that he did, but I'm just wondering how many times at personal risk did he err on the side of humanity? Taking the risk, maybe even with his own situation. How many times did he put aside his own agenda and even risked a friendship because somebody needed some brotherly advice. In this life, we can build monuments or we can leave legacies. And what do you want to leave? Many of you are the product of this man's time and his love, and you are his legacy. So the question we have to ask ourselves, who's going to be impacted by my life? Who are the people that I have invested myself into? Lesson number 2. Don't forget to talk to the flowers. Mark Landis was mentioning the other day, he said we were at his house for something. I don't remember, building a deck or something, I'm not for sure, but he said he was just over there, and then he hears Bob over there in another part of the backyard talking to somebody. He looked and there wasn't anybody there. He was talking to the flowers. Of course, you only get worried whenever the flowers start talking back. But you know, he was a person who knew how to enjoy the life that he had and enjoy the little things of his life, his family, his home, his friends. He was a man who enjoyed the small things. He wasn't somebody who was like waiting for this to happen or waiting for that to happen in order to enjoy life. You know, some people, they're always waiting for something to happen before they can live a life. In fact, some people are so busy making a living that they forget to make a life. Some are waiting for retirement, or some are waiting for this situation, the breakthrough. I don't know, win the lottery. Something in order so that they can start living. They're just prolonging joy because life can be lived right now. Are you gulping life or are you sipping it? Are you enjoying it? What are you waiting for? Others, they say, well, just be sure and stop and smell the roses. But for Bob, it was, don't forget to talk to the flowers. Lesson number 3, live life with no regrets. This means that whenever life is over, you don't need to end it with a bunch of, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or I should have done this, or should have done that. But as we visited on Wednesday, Robin would say that he lived life with no regrets. I mean, have you done your part to rectify the relationships? Now, we can't make other people do their part. We can't change them. All we need to do is make sure we do what we know what we could do and just be a piece of that. Are you putting off something that you should be doing, that you later on you're going to say, I wish I would have done that, and just kicking yourself because that opportunity just kind of passed on by? I think about parents many times, you know, because of the stress when their kids are small, they're like, I can't wait until they're gone. But when they are gone, they go, I wasted some of my time. We need to live a life in such a way that it has no regrets. Lesson number 4. Simple faith for simple strength. I don't know if Bob talked to you about his faith in God, but undoubtedly he had one. With some of his friends, we know that Bob was willingly and openly able to share his faith in Jesus Christ and especially his eternal hope in God. He knew the significance of a faith relationship with Jesus, but he just wasn't pushy about it. But it was a source of strength. You think, how does somebody come into faith? Well, it's usually because you go through problems, struggles, trials, pain, failure. These are the kinds of things that push us to God. And Bob was not immune to the hurdles that life had thrown at him and at his family. But he knew where to go when he needed help from above.